The good news, in addition to the levy that was passed 4 years ago, is that we made a decision going into 2011-2012 to open up our open enrollment because we have a very good product to be proud of here in the school district. That's a credit to everybody in this district, the teachers, the administrators, the staff, the board, and the community. We've got a very saleable product that people want to come educate their children in this district. What's happened is we went from losing about $200,000 to gaining about $800,000. We've gained in the net about $1 million a year by making that decision. That's been dramatically helpful to our financial recovery. The other things that happen when you look back in time, these are things that I prepare for the board every year to kind of summarize what happened during the year. You go back through these year by year, what the story is. I don't mean to run through this too quickly, but as you go through it, we went through about 3 years of reductions in staff to get right-sized to the number of kids that we're educating. That's really the bottom line. That's a very painful thing to go through. We never want to have to go through that again. Now that we've been through that, we want to be able to manage to the staffing by attrition going forward as we have fluctuations with our number of kids that are coming through the district. But we did some other things too. We did some very creative things in technology. We outsourced our technology department, took that savings, reinvested it back into the infrastructure so that we have all new wireless, all new servers, all new backbone infrastructure here for our initiatives that are a bring your own device technology initiative. As we get through this, what then has happened is we've gone from, in 10-11, we're facing about $1 million deficit. Last year, we closed the books with a $1 million surplus. We'll do the same thing close to it again this year. But as you look at school finance, when you typically pass a levy in the state, you have a positive position that over time starts to decline. You cross over to a negative position, you have to pass another levy. It kind of looks like a bow tie if you drew the picture of that. Typically in schools in Ohio, you're faced with having to go back to the ballot every about 3 to 5 years because legislation was passed under Governor Voinovich, stopped, and for good reason, stopped allowing schools to collect an inflation value of the property as the property inflated in value. We didn't want to tax seniors out of their own homes, so the state said we're going to stop doing that. That creates a problem, though, in that the state does not provide increases in funding. Our property value isn't going to cause increases in funding because what happens is they adjust the collection rate so that the same amount's collected and the amounts don't go up with inflation. So, for us, we had to kind of cut our way into that bow tie, if you will, of good while we try to ride this out and see what happens with the state. What has happened then is we went from a very bad situation, looking at some very ugly numbers that resulted in us having to take actions over 3 years to right-size the organization. We were able to do that, and right now we're looking at being in the black through about 18-19. That was prior to the governor's proposal. The governor's proposal was to make additional cuts in funding primarily to rural districts, which were going to really hurt us. That was probably going to shift us back to a potential of being on the ballot for new money in 17. Now, I got accused yesterday of doing a happy dance in the superintendent's office because the legislature came out and rejected the governor's proposal and funded about $147 million into restoring funding for primarily these rural districts that were facing this cut. So at the moment, we think we're waiting to see if the Senate follows suit. And if the governor will accept this, I'm presuming he will, that we're back to flat funding assumption going forward, meaning we don't get any more money from the state than what we're currently getting. We'll see some bleed as the per pupil amounts increase of money going out the back door, as I mentioned before, to charters and others. But we'll get some gain on the open enrollment per child that comes in also. So in the end, we'll probably be in this neighborhood, as Bob mentioned, of about 10 years before we would have to ask for any new money from 2011, when we first asked for that levy. In this day and age of school funding, where it's usually every 3 to 5 years, we can be very proud of everybody that's participated in that. And I mean by that our faculty and staff and administration. We have taken freezes, we have changed our health care plan to make this happen, in addition to getting the right number of people here to educate the smaller number of kids. So I want to be very respectful of the folks that made those changes happen and agreed to them, because they did it with no attitude of, hey, we can't bargain with this because it's not a contract year. We did it outside of the contract. And that's pretty extraordinary. If we didn't pass this renewal levy, you can see we would start hemorrhaging money really next year, next fiscal year. We would start seeing ourselves run into a deficit. One thing I do want to mention while I'm up here is whether or not we go forward with a construction bond levy, the numbers I just showed you don't change. So many folks, when we get into a building construction situation, whether it's Keystone or Sheffield or other places, when you build something, it's very easy to say, well, the next levy after that was caused by that building. If we had not built that, we would not be in this problem. That's really not true. Any construction bond that would be approved funds that building. Operating the building is a totally separate issue. The operating fund is the stuff I'm talking about here. Whether we would build a building or choose not to build a building, we would still be on the ballot looking like about 18, 19, 20, about 10 years after the last time, whether we build a new building or not. And frankly, if we do build a new building, I would be expecting some savings from consolidating into 2 buildings, some attrition over that process, and being able to generate some savings and probably stretch out that next new operating levy a little bit further than where I'm projecting it right now. Would actually be a good thing financially. But it's always human nature that if we do end up building a building, that very first operating levy that would come up in 18, 19, 20, geez, if we didn't build that building. You know, I say that, I know everybody will forget that, but I just had to say it. It's kind of like the happy dance yesterday. I just had to do it. We've got an opportunity in this district to upgrade our facilities and to be even more attractive. And don't be afraid of open enrollment, because as I showed you, that open enrollment, though those people may not pay any of the taxes in a bond levy, those folks are floating our programs. Without those kids being in here, our opportunities and academic offerings would be greatly limited, and our staffing would have to be reduced. With that, if there are any questions, I can get off my soapbox. If not, anytime you want to come in, I love to talk school finance. I like to put people to sleep. But it is a very complex topic. Every time I get up here, I feel like if I would go into the full scope of school finance, I would look like the guy at the table at the park with the 3 shells, pick which one the pea's under. Because you try to explain school finance, it's so complex with so many spinning parts, you look like a con man trying to explain it all. But I do want to praise the leadership that we've had and the cooperation we've had in our staff and our faculty. Because without that, this is an extraordinary story. Without what everybody in this district has done, we wouldn't be in the position that we're in. We're in a very unique position. We've got a very special product, a very special group of people here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dragon. With that, in regards to school funding, I did create a portion of our website titled Public School Finance 101. It's under the About the District section. It's a very simplified version of school finance in Ohio. It helps you understand some of the things associated with it. Brad and I are both kind of finance geeks, if you will, and this is a version that we put together that I think can help people understand things. So with that, I will take any questions that people might have. Nothing? All right, if there's no questions, thank you guys very much for coming out. I think it started to rain out there a little bit, so not the most pleasant night. That seems to be what happens each time we hold a meeting, but we appreciate the community support. We really appreciate you coming out to see the presentation. Everything will be posted on the website as soon as we can get it up for everyone, and we will move forward from there. And as Mr. McCracken said, if you ever have questions, comments, concerns, my door is always open. Brad's door is always open. Feel free to stop by the board office and see us. Thank you and have a good evening.